Hello there, good evening to you. Welcome to the Saroy channel. I'm so glad you've joined me tonight. As I've always told you, I love anybody that's fascinated by Bigfoot. And this is an interesting story because we've got a Bigfoot stealing somebody's groceries, and it appears that he did have rather a sweet tooth, and we know how addictive sugar can be, so that Bigfoot had to deal with an addiction. So let's get started. I think you're going to enjoy this story. But before we do, don't forget to subscribe to my channel because I have got so many amazing stories in store for you. And if you're anything like me, there is nothing nicer in this entire world than going to sleep listening to stories. I just can't think of anything that's better than that. So let's get going. You'll love this story. Dear Sarah and all your listeners, my Bigfoot encounter happened in early fall. I had recently got divorced from my ex-husband, and I was looking for a home in rural Kentucky to raise my two boys. Price was a huge issue to me, as I had a very tight budget. One day my estate agent showed me around this beautiful property that was at the end of this delightful cul-de-sac on a rural road. It was situated against a beautiful backdrop of forests that went back for hundreds of miles. All the houses in this lovely cul-de-sac looked almost identical, but the one I was looking at was much more spacious and individual, and far more personal. And for me, it reminded me of a cozy little English cottage, something I'd always aspired to own. The estate agent encouraged me to put an offer in for the property, and so I did, but I was offering a price far too low for anyone to ever consider, of a property that was worth much, much more. Imagine my surprise and total elation when the agent told me that my offer had been accepted. I was amazed to buy such a quality home at such an incredibly low price. I could not believe how fortunate I was. So weeks later we moved into our new home, and to say we were ecstatic was an understatement. We were completely over the moon. However, my enthusiasm for my purchase dissipated when the next door neighbour revealed to me that my house had been on the market for 4 whole years without a single buyer in sight. I was told that people who bought the property in the past came and went, and no one stayed there longer than 3 months. Rumours abounded that my house was haunted. Naturally, I was upset to learn all this about my home and wondered if I had been too hasty in buying the property in the first place. I did not believe in the supernatural, so all this ghost stuff seemed ludicrous and preposterous to me. Even so, it left a nasty taste in my mouth. Why did people desert the place after 3 months? It seemed a crazy idea. 2 weeks went by without any incidents in my home, so I began to wonder whether all the rumours were just pie in the sky, and I certainly hoped they were. Just when I began to settle into my home, I went shopping one day and started to retrieve the food parcels from the boot and bring them into the kitchen. However, when I went back to retrieve my shopping, 10 large bags of food had simply vanished into thin air from my boot. They were completely gone, and it had taken only seconds for them to vanish. I looked in my boot, I looked around the car, I looked everywhere, but could not find my bags. 20 minutes later, I happened to glance out of the living room window and saw something scattered across the grass. They were the remnants of a few of my groceries flung across the lawn that clearly the thief did not want, like coffee, washing powder, soap, flour, baking powder, cocoa, and cappuccino sachets. I went into the garden to retrieve the scant items that were just lying there, a little worse for wear. It was all very odd, I thought, examining the 6-foot fence that separated our property from the forest behind us. It was kind of like a boundary wall. I was wondering if a homeless person was living in the forest and scaling my fence to steal my shopping. It seemed like a plausible explanation to me. My attention was drawn to a large muddy footprint on the ground near the fence. The footprint was 18 inches and was massive. It was also a bare footprint. I now was certain that someone was living over my fence in the forest, and he was stealing my shopping and wore no shoes, and to make matters worse, he was going around barefoot. I wondered if he was barefoot because his feet were so large and he couldn't find a pair of shoes to fit. I had heard about people like that before, that had to have their shoes especially made for them. I did feel a smouldering sense of sympathy for the poor fellow not being able to wear shoes, because we were starting to get colder weather, as winter would soon be approaching, and in my experience, nothing is worse in this world than freezing feet. So what kind of thing was this vagrant stealing from me? It was meat, vegetables, lots and lots of fruit, sweet things like donuts and cakes, and so whatever it was, I guessed that he had a very sweet tooth. One morning, one of my children told me that he had woken up in the middle of the night and seen red eyes staring at him. My other child had a similar experience, but believed he had seen a ghost through the window. "It was a big black mass, Mum," he told me. "It looked at me through the window with big, round, scary red eyes. It grunted and then floated on the lawn and then vanished before me." I had never believed in ghosts or demons, but two of my children reporting similar experiences was more unusual, and there had to be some merit to their stories because there were two witnesses to these red eyes. Something was going on in our house, and I needed to get to the bottom of it. It was my Wednesday weekly grocery shopping day, and I decided to take no chances as far as the vagrant was concerned. So I made sure I locked the boot before I retrieved my shopping. But guess what? When I returned to the kitchen, the shopping that I had previously brought in from the boot had been completely stolen. It was snatched. There was no sign of it anywhere. Whoever was stealing my shopping was remarkably clever and managed to remove my shopping with so much stealth that I had neither heard or saw them. One thing I knew was that the thief who was stealing my groceries had a massive odor problem, because I could smell wafts of stale urine blended with a wet dog and dirty, sweaty sneaker kind of smell. It was nasty. Is this how bad I would smell if I didn't bath for a long time, I wondered. Once again, I found discarded items of shopping on my lawn. It came as no surprise to me to see that bathroom soaps and shampoos had been completely discarded and promptly thrown over the fence back to me. This homeless person did not even want to practice good hygiene, I thought. The following week, when I did my shopping, I decided that I would backtrack on myself. This would mean I would pretend to go to the shopping bag. I would pretend to get the shopping bags from the boot, but would creep back to the kitchen to see if anyone was stealing the shopping that I had already brought in. I needed to confront this man and possibly help him in some way, but this stealing just had to stop. I made a note of all the help available to the homeless, so that I could help the man get some warm food, a roof over his head, and a nice warm hot bath. I even made inquiries about where I could get shoes made for people with 18-inch feet. And there are people out there that will make shoes for very large feet, believe it or not. So now was the moment. It was a Wednesday morning, and I placed the shopping bags on the kitchen floor and then pretended to go back to the boot to retrieve my shopping. But instead, I tiptoed back to the kitchen. Then I saw the thief. But what I saw was not a homeless man like I'd expected, but a massive, hairy creature with thick, dark black hair. At first I thought it was a bear in my kitchen, until he turned around and I saw a primate-looking face with brown eyes staring at me inquisitively. The creature was so huge, standing at about 8 feet tall and 8 feet wide, and he looked extremely comfortable in my kitchen. I really did feel tiny by comparison to this creature, like the girl on the King Kong movie, standing next to that massive ape. This animal, whatever it was, threw the shopping bags over his shoulders as if they weighed nothing, and then I saw him leave. He took a few strides to get to the fence, and I watched in awe from the kitchen window as he just stepped over it as if it was nothing. I stood there not moving for several minutes, unable to believe what I was seeing. I suddenly saw the undesirable shopping purchases being flung back over the fence at me. Suddenly it dawned on me that this creature might be a Bigfoot. No way, I thought to myself. Bigfoots aren't real. Those kind of creatures don't exist. I had always believed this stuff about the creature to be hocus pocus and stuff and nonsense, and I had pooh-poohed the idea that such an animal could ever exist in North America, let alone the rest of the world. I suddenly had an idea. I would phone my friend Tricia, someone I had known for years, that I'd always thought was very cuckoo, especially when she would talk about Bigfoots all the time. Everyone would roll their eyes when she talked about the creature because they thought she was off her trolley and stark raving mad. Maybe I had misjudged her, I thought. I phoned Tricia and told her everything that was going on at my property, and she was wonderful and really responsive. I told her about the groceries being pinched and the red eyes on my children that they had seen at the window. I told her that I could not afford to stay at my property if the creature kept stealing my food, and I really was beginning to wonder if this Bigfoot was the reason no one stayed on the property for long. You're lucky, she told me. It does not sound that he was aggressive towards you. I mean, did he growl? No, I said. I didn't hear anything. He just looked at me with a curious look on his eyes. Were you afraid of him? She asked. I felt so tiny next to him, I said. But at that moment when I saw him, I think I was so surprised. It was such an unexpected sight, seeing something like that in my kitchen. It was so out of place. It almost seemed surreal. I think I was really too shocked to be afraid. Well, that's promising, she said. Well, is there anything I can do to keep the creature away? I asked her. There is something that could help. You do have boys, and so why don't you get them to pee around the perimeters of your property? What would that do? I asked. Well, the male urine will set a boundary that Bigfoot will hopefully respect. How often should I do this? I asked. Get your kids to pee around your property twice a week indefinitely. Will it work? I asked. I hope so, she said. It really depends on the Bigfoot. I mean, most of them are so elusive they would never steal your shopping. This one of yours is bold, or he has a hell of a sweet tooth, as you say. And you know what they say about sugar? It can be a very addictive drug. And maybe that's why he's this bold, because he's just hooked on the stuff. So you think this Bigfoot is a sugar addict? I asked. Well, if he has picked out all the sweet stuff from your shopping bags, I would say that he has an insatiable desire for sugar. What about the red eyes? I asked, and the fact that my son thought the creature was a ghost because it seemed to float and then vanish. There are lots of reports like that with Bigfoot, you know. They're extremely graceful despite their size. And during the night, the red eye shine, I imagine, would seem almost supernatural. So no, you haven't got ghosts, but a regular Bigfoot probably, and maybe he's very curious about you and the family. So that's what we did all that time ago, and it's now been 5 years, and I'm glad to report that we have not seen the creature since. So I think he got the message with the urine markers from my boys. Believe me, it worked, which was a huge relief, because I really did not want to move from my dream home. From time to time, I've thrown some sweet red apples over the fence to help wean the Bigfoot off his sugar addiction, because I always kind of feel a little bit sorry for the poor thing, and they always vanish, so I imagine he is eating them. I'm grateful that he was not aggressive, but I'm more surprised that I did not feel any real fear, which is amazing because, believe me, these creatures are massive, and please don't ever underestimate what they are capable of, because I think they could be extremely dangerous. I've just been very lucky. I hope you enjoyed my story. What a fantastic story. Thank you so very much. Until next time, good night and goodbye.